Joining us here today is Jackie Keating. Jackie is the Chief Development Officer of Dare to Care Food Bank. Samantha Tyrell is our Senior Digital Strategist here at More. And Julie Day is Vice President of Client Service at More. I'm going to turn it over to her.
Right. Thank you again, everyone, for joining today. We're excited to have you with us. For today's agenda, we're going to walk through the following topics. We're going to define rapid response fundraising. What is it and why does it matter? Our partner, Jackie Keating from Dare to Care Food Bank, will share about their recent experience during the government shutdown. I'm going to walk through some important digital media strategies, and then we'll walk through key ways to engage donors after the rapid response. Lastly, we'll have some additional case studies to share and close with practical ways you can prepare ahead of time should a disaster strike. So what is rapid response fundraising? It is a key strategic approach used by organizations, mostly nonprofits, to quickly and effectively respond to urgent fundraising needs, often triggered by a specific event. It depends on how quickly you can get to market, how agile you are as an organization, and making decisions driven by data. These are important characteristics during a rapid response event. Some common scenarios include emergencies such as fires, floods, or storms, like a lot of the nation is experiencing right now, policy changes like the recent SNAP cuts, and breaking news such as the government shutdown or conflict in other countries. I'm going to turn it over to Sam to talk through why rapid response matters.
Thanks, Julie. In building off those key characteristics of speed, agility, and of course, our favorite, data-driven decisions, there are definitely inherent benefits to acting early when it comes to rapid response. First and foremost, you're going to meet that urgent need, right, which is really the key component. Capture donor attention, build trust by bringing authentic, heart-centered, and real-time communication to your donors, and then increasing opportunities for retention of emergency response donors. And this really comes in play by being able to recreate that initial experience for a donor. Why did they say yes the last time there was an urgent need? And bringing them back to that experience so that they can support again when the moment is rising. Subsequently, there are impacts of delayed response, such as missing momentum with your donor community, increased competition for attention in the market space, and higher cost to acquire when you're looking at your digital planning. In addition, operational strain. For our organizations, when the need is greatest, the influx of fundraising is a necessity. Time is of the essence. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Jackie to share more about some real examples from Dare to Care Food Bank.
Hey everyone, it's great to be with you. I lead fundraising at Dare to Care Food Bank. We are a mid-size regional food bank, and we serve 13 counties in Kentucky and southern Indiana. Just some context for where we were when the government did shut down. We were experiencing already higher levels of food insecurity among our neighbors. So food insecurity had grown about 48% the 2 years before the government shut down. And at the same time, we were receiving less food from the federal government. So we were already facing this gap when the government shut down. We knew we had to act quickly because there was already an increased need and that need was going to grow. For context, SNAP benefits, while Dare to Care does not administer SNAP benefits, for every one meal the charitable sector like Dare to Care and our sister food banks provide, SNAP provides 9. With that interruption, we knew we were going to see a massive influx in need in our community and that we needed to respond. This is a snapshot of our first days, what we did immediately. The first point is one that as fundraisers, as communicators, sometimes we jump to what's the message? What do we want to tell our supporters about what's happening? But I think it's critical that we take a beat. For us, that was pulling our team together and saying, how are we going to respond? We might not know the full picture. We might not understand our full response, but what is it that we need to do today to meet this moment? For us, it was rapidly increasing the amount of food that we purchase as a food bank, understanding that there was going to be a shortage. We thought, how do we make sure that all of our key stakeholders, our neighbors, our partner agencies that help us distribute food, our donors and our volunteers, how do we make sure that everyone understands, one, the problem, two, how we're going to help, and three, how they can help us? We built a very robust communication plan to reach all of those folks. We took a look at existing things. I'll get to that in a moment. But what do we already have available that we can make more relevant, that we can adjust slightly to make more relevant to this moment? We also had a lot of our donors come to us who immediately wanted to help. We were able to capture some of those for matching gifts. We were able to immediately respond to a request to do a telethon, which we had never done as an organization. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to Julie and Sam and the team at Moore. We very early on called them and said, okay, what do we need to do? We had some digital ads in market. We had some things already planned, and they were tremendous partners with us to quickly shift and meet the moment with relevant messaging. All of that resulted in 170% year-over-year growth. When we looked at the time from when the government shut down to when it reopened, and we looked apples to apples at fundraising, 170% year-over-year growth. That did not happen by accident. That happened because we were really thoughtful and we had great partners like those at Moore. We had 2,000 plus new and reactivated donors during that time frame, during that 40+ day government shutdown. Again, that doesn't happen by accident. That took a lot of planning, coordination, and great partnerships like the one we share with Moore. This is an example. I mentioned using what you already have. We send a monthly e-newsletter to all of our donors and volunteers. This is a template that we already had ready to go. We just changed the messaging like you do every month. One thing that I want to draw your attention to, though, is you see on the top of the page, join us for a virtual update and conversation. At Dare to Care Food Bank, we like to convene community conversations on a quarterly basis. Sometimes we'll do additional ones if they're warranted, if something pops up, like the government shutdown. We are getting lots of questions from our donors. How can we help? What's going on? We took this coffee and conversation format that we already have and do on a regular basis and adjusted it slightly to a virtual format so that people could join from their homes. We recorded it, so if folks couldn't join in real time, they could catch it later. We did all kinds of these little tips and tricks, building on things we already had in place to make sure that we were communicating with our donors, again, what we were doing, what was happening in the community, and how they could help. I won't get too in the weeds on all of our response activities. There were many, but I wanted to point out that each of these decisions, from initially investing at $250,000 to increase food purchases, to increasing our dock hours, offered us an opportunity to communicate with our donors and volunteers in real time, to let them know that we had not taken our foot off the gas, to let them know the impact of their gift, and if they hadn't yet made a gift, what they could help us achieve. Every decision point, everything we decided to do to help our community and meet the moment was an opportunity to talk to our donors and let them know how we were responding. The results were astounding. 170% year-over-year fundraising is nothing to sneeze at. We had 143 food and fund drives generated in that time period. That was more than the entire year before combined in like a 6-week window. And so the messaging really did resonate. We had so many people who wanted to lend their time to support our work, so much so that we created 15 new volunteer experiences during that 6-week window to accommodate all of these volunteers. We were able to ramp up the food distributed to our community really quickly. All of this showed that when there is a disaster and you tell your supporters how they can help, the community really does respond.
Jackie, it's just so touching. I love the outpouring of support that we saw at a time where the need was greatest. It was humbling to be a part of that, along with these digital strategies and channel mix we did in the background. The key here is the timeline within the first 72 hours. We knew we needed speed and strategy, and that we needed to take what we had planned and elevate it across all of our digital channels so that we could meet that moment that Jackie was speaking about. In this case, when we look at these examples, Julie and I are blessed to support several food banks. We have partners across, multitude of different digital channels that we serve. Specifically here, you can see some of the examples for Dare to Care Food Bank. With email, we had a Thanksgiving meals drive campaign planned. So what we decided as the fastest path for digital strategy was to take the public-facing fundraising goals and food for meals goals that we had already planned and link that to the real-time urgency of the SNAP stalls. Lightbox, we highlighted real-time urgency by calling out exactly what was needed to meet the need as this funding was stalled. For paid social, that was really more of the back end strategy of expanding our prospecting audiences. We did that also across for paid search, looking at contextual keywords, interest-based targeting, and additional non-brand prospecting pushes. For programmatic, follows suit with prospecting audiences. We also had our team build out some high-value donor lookalikes to see how we could interact there. We did a co-targeting touch for our lapsed COVID donors, looking to revitalize and re-energize those previous emergency response donors to give another gift when the need was greatest. In addition, you want to look at all of your digital channels, right? So every possible opportunity to hit this omni-channel touch, that's what you're looking for. Texting is a great opportunity for rapid response because it is such a quick turnaround in terms of creative. CTV or video online channels, great opportunity to have top of funnel messaging that matches the need. We'll work into some additional examples as we go. We have examples of the creative we put out for Dare to Care. What you're looking at is what would have been our initial email for the Thanksgiving meals drive. You'll see we left in heartfelt components of the client stories, but also clearly address the need and the urgency of the rising need due to SNAP stalls. And then we brought that over on the subsequent slide to the Lightbox and programmatic creative as well, so that you were getting that same omni-touch messaging and it was clear what was going on. And that leads us to what happened. If we are taking a look at key performance highlights and what happened with these prospecting forward campaigns, this is a list of a variety of different partners' results. And I wanted to pull from different channels based on the outcome. So when we look at our food bank partners as a whole, we see some really positive things, and it's a blessing. We were able to serve and feed many people. Lightbox revenue increased 30 times year over year. Paid media strategies led to an increased revenue of 150% year over year for our food bank partners. Our ROAS climbed in a really impressive way, shout out to the media team, from $7.87 to $13.05. Non-branded keyword relevance, it was definitely a win. We ended up driving 44% of our paid search revenue for one of our food bank partners, specifically through this non-branded prospecting strategy. Contextual keywords certainly supported on the back end with clicks and conversions. We saw massive increase month over month in both of those KPIs, actually increased clicks by 55% month over month and 88% in conversion rate. Now, digging into the CTV and video online. For one of our food bank partners, we saw an assisted revenue increase of 484% year over year, which is staggering, a return on ad spend of $4.88. But what's interesting about this being a top of funnel channel is that we were able to prove significant conversion lift in other digital spaces. This came as a really helpful tool for our email campaign, actually lifting our email conversion rate by over 800%. Just being in market with that messaging at that time and having those additional impressions proved successful. The other thing we noticed that was very exciting is the reactivation of our lapsed COVID donors. This was a co-targeting touch point that we did in programmatic across our food bank partners. We were able to reactivate at a response rate of 2.2%. We were pleased with the outcome there. Now, how did it work for other organizations? Let's dig into some other examples of rapid response. Here we have what it looks like to really be direct to the rescue. The example is an anti-poverty organization that had a disaster. It impacted one of their locations. They needed to provide emergency shelter and they needed donor support to do that. The solution was an omni touch point digital campaign. And it was, as you can see, is very speedy. Disaster was in the morning. By 5 p.m. the same day, there was a text out, and then subsequently email. And then also the other piece that's interesting is the follow-up. There was a follow-up to the initial email communication, giving an actual update on the progress being made for this emergency fundraising effort. In addition, you're seeing donation models, coordinated donation pages, and a geofenced social media campaign. The results, over $100,000 in campaign revenue generated, 900 gifts created, and an average gift of over $100. Now, what did this campaign require? First and foremost, it required a rapid response process in place so that you could have that speed of implementation. It meant ready access to on-scene imagery and approved stories. It meant having a defined review process so that that way we could work fast and make sure that the communications were also brand approved and organization approved. It also meant having an engaged audience of supporters we could reach out to for rapid response. Most importantly, a mature digital campaign. This was very fast. The attention to this matter actually fell off within 24 hours. So having a mature paid media campaign that you could lean into in that moment and have that quick uptick in response is crucial. In addition, for this campaign, we did have the ability to offer a match as well. We have another example of the power of being first overall. This takes us back to July 4th, 2025. We remember devastating rain, flooding in the Guadalupe River in Texas. 130 people passed, and this relief organization wanted to do some fundraising and serve boots on the ground. The solution was a multi-touch digital campaign, email and text. We're seeing a trend, and also paid media. We were able to go live with email and text on July 5th, and then we have our subsequent touch points as they went down through the experience. And this led to almost $200,000 in campaign revenue, 1,300 new gifts, and a return on ad spend for our paid media efforts of $5.73. Now, what did we learn from the flood? The lessons from the flooding. Speed is critical, and it's more important than having the perfect creative. Prioritizing and activating your lower funnels first makes sense. You're going to drive immediate and direct revenue, and other messages can wait. Being nimble is a key ingredient. Building off of what you have or pausing something existing to meet the moment is very important. When it comes to rapid response fundraising, it will never be as top of mind for your community of donors to support as it is when it's fresh and happening. So it's really important that you have a good plan in place. Other messages can wait. You can pause those. Here you saw the efforts of a staggered rollout effect, multi-touches over a very specific campaign period. In this case, we also saw that our PMAX ads were very successful as a tactic within search acquisition. Lots of good learnings there. Moving on, I'm going to kick it back over to Julie to talk about new donor journeys.
Thank you, Sam. One of my favorite topics is on retention. Now that you have all these great new donors from your rapid response, what do you do with them? This is where having key retention strategies in place is very important. These include a timely thank you process, a welcome strategy for your new donors, both online and offline, and demonstrating impact back to the donors that supported you during that critical time. Here are a few best practices to help ensure that these donors stay engaged with your organization and become a repeat donor for you. when the need arises again and for your ongoing support. So we encourage you to use at least 2 communication channels within the first 3 months of their gift. This can be a text and a thank you receipt via email. This could be a phone call and a print receipt, but just communicating with them in different ways to engage with them and see where they respond best. Use storytelling to demonstrate the impact. One of the recommendations we made to our food bank partners was send a follow-up email, because most of these donors did come in online. Send a follow-up email telling a story of someone who was helped with extra food when their SNAP benefits were paused. Personalize their messaging, indicating how important they were to your organization and gave during a time that was critical when you needed it most. Make sure you recognize that they gave during that time and you honor their gift with that message. And then develop customized stewardship plans based on the donor journey, creating a journey personalized to them. So not just sending a mass email communication out, but again, personalizing, how their impact was made, what their gift did, and really talking to them in the channels that they have been responding to you.
Thanks, Julie. Some very practical tips from my seat are to build a rapid response framework now. For us at Dare to Care, we have a couple of tools in place that really helped. They came in clutch for the government shutdown. One is we have a very robust stewardship calendar. It outlines every single communication touch point that we have going out with our donors. At a quick glance, we were able to come together and analyze all of the things we had in the pipeline, what could be adjusted quickly, and what we needed to fill in the gaps. Additionally, because of the excellent recommendations of Julie Day during the pandemic, we were able to flag a lot of our COVID era donors, reach out to them in a new way and reactivate many of them. We gleaned a ton during the pandemic that helped us respond in this way. Also, have adaptable templates. You do not need to reinvent the wheel here. For us, we use things that we already had, like our e-newsletter template. We used our coffee and conversation strategy, same agenda template that we had used for others that our donor and volunteer community are really comfortable and familiar with. Our partnership with More cannot be understated. They already had things in the works for us, and we're able to be key partners, strategists, and helping us think through how to adjust those things that were already in market and spin up new things when we didn't have templates available. We were able to pull our team together quickly, both leadership team and leaders of functional areas, so that we could make swift decisions about how we were going to move and support our community, but also development and communications teams, so that we could convey those plans to our donors and build a plan to engage them. Track your progress. For us, during the 6 weeks of the government shutdown, we did weekly in-depth reports. We shared the donor results every week with our leadership and development teams so they could quickly scan the list of donors supporting us. They became deputized fundraisers during that time, so they could see if there was anyone in their networks who made a significant gift. Our chief financial officer was thanking his neighbor. Our chief people officer was thanking one of our vendors who made an exceptional gift during the shutdown. So sharing that information widely within the organization, asking your colleagues to help, and giving them information. We were fortunate to have robust community support financially. It gave our operations team and our food procurement team the confidence to know that they could continue making thoughtful food purchase decisions and ramp up to meet the moment. The last thing I'll say is be sure that I know it's easy to get like the crisis is over and you're back to normal. For us, we took a moment and did a postmortem. We talked about what worked well and what didn't, so that we can strengthen our rapid response framework for whatever comes next.
So to look at our key takeaways, speed and strategy certainly equals success. it becomes more important to be out in market early and build on the creative as you go than having everything buttoned up perfect from the top. Digital channels are definitely critical for rapid response. They're nimble, and there's so many different ways that you can utilize increased audience and prospecting and really rise to meet that moment. In addition, I would say don't be afraid to reorganize your monthly budgets and spends for your paid media channels to really be able to bolster your rapid response fundraising and utilize the most opportunity in those moments. Donor stewardship and post-crisis is essential, right? People give because they are connected and they want to make a difference and they want to make an impact. They continue to give because they feel that you see them and honor them and you've created a relationship with them. So really, it's a great opportunity to build out those regular touch points and have great ongoing relationships with your community of donors. And I think we're at Q&A. Woo.
Yes, we have plenty of time for questions and answers here. While we're waiting for folks to write in, Christine has a question and is raising her hand. I just need to figure out how to call on you. Okay, I'm going to call on you. Christine, would you like to ask a question?
In regards to the campaigns you all had shared, was there any mail follow-up after the digital campaign went through? And if so, what did that look like and what was your timeline? Because in reality, the critical response bubble had already hit that day when you hit all that communication that first day or two, but was there any success following up with your donors via mail?
I can speak to that. In this particular instance, we didn't adjust any mail strategies because this happened so quick and it was like we didn't know when the government was going to actually shut down, if it was, and how long it would last. What did happen was that whatever was in market did serve as a fundraising tool, and we saw a significant increased response in the month of November. When I look back at the COVID pandemic, we did add to our print. We were able to adjust quickly and added to PS statements to be relevant as quickly as possible, and then adjusted content and copy from there. Again, not knowing how long that was going to last. I don't think anyone predicted it was going to last as long as it did, but we continued to adjust print and copy where we could. And I do remember in the crisis of Hurricane Katrina, mail was actually not moving. The post office was shut down. Local post offices were impacted, but once mail could resume, we were able to get responses out. We've done this for tornado disasters as well in several areas. So when you can get a mail piece in, it becomes a pivot of the needs and follow up of what you need to replenish for the emergency, not necessarily about fundraising during that time. That's why digital is so important, because you can get out immediately and quickly during the government shutdown. What was in market did increase year over year significantly.
A tale of two lead times, so thank you. Very differing between them both. And the bump of what's already in the market is a good thing to remember, so thank you.
Thank you for that question. Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question, or you can type a question into the Q&A. While people are typing madly, one question that I had for Jackie is, we talked a little bit about stewardship post donation. If someone didn't have a connection with your organization, now the SNAP benefits would have happened back in November, so it's been a couple of months. What has the stewardship looked like for those donors? If I were a donor, what would I be receiving and how would it impact me?
That is such a great question, Nick. There are multiple answers. Touching on a bit of your question, Christine, one of the ways that we used mail, building what we already have, we already had an annual report planned. We send an itemized gift summary to many of our donors in January, along with an impact statement. That was already planned and printed. We added an additional one pager to highlight and summarize everything that happened during the government shutdown as a supplement. They've received that. They've received, for sure, mail thank yous. They've received email summaries of what we've done. We're very, very active on social media to provide updates in real time. Depending on the level of the contribution, we've asked folks to tour, made personal phone calls, and sent handwritten notes. I don't think there's a one size fits all here. We followed Julie's advice on meeting people and personalizing the donor journey for everyone.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat about CTV mentioned on a couple of these slides. So we were talking earlier about a rapid response when there was the Haiti earthquake and when Ukraine was invaded. Both had CTV that were very quick after it. In fact, the Ukraine example was 24 hours after Ukraine was invaded. This organization was up on CTV with ads that had a 24.9x return on ad spend. So, but the question is, how does CTV get used for rapid response given that it takes a while to cut a spot usually?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that speaks back to being out on channels over the creative, right? So in this case, for our rapid response efforts, we had a spot in market already that was more of a general holiday meals ask. But having that CTV top of funnel presence did certainly increase our results during the rapid response. To your point, Nick, with the other examples of additional organizations we've supported, having materials that you can go live with quickly that might not necessarily be as polished as other more edited spots helps you get into market in 24 hours. The actual campaign itself can go live just that quickly, as long as you're not so attached to the creative that you're pushing out.
That speed is more important than the creative. And you also highlighted earlier having that creative in-house, having the shots of Haiti and Ukraine in normal times.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Take them in the chat, Q&A, raise your hand. How did the unplanned pivot to crisis fundraising during the shutdown, and Jackie, this one looks like it's for you, shape your year-end results and alter your longer-term trajectory? Engagement strategies.
Sure. TBD on longer term trajectory. We're still strategizing about that. In terms of year-end results, we saw a tremendous outpouring of support. We reached our annual fundraising goal quite a bit early. We've had to do a mid-year budget adjustment because we need to ramp up our food purchasing budget. The community has supported our ability to do that. It definitely supported our year-end fundraising results. And again, what comes next, TBD.
We learned a lot from COVID. We didn't know how long COVID was going to last. We didn't know how long we should keep these donors in the mix for reactivation. And in a lot of cases, I think we kept them in too long, hoping they would re-engage. But now we know they are a great audience for engaging when a crisis does happen. And so for the audience here, if they do not give a second gift within the next 6 months, we're going to model them and use them in that way for emergencies and only take the top 5% of those donors to engage with in certain ways and put them back into acquisition to try and engage them, become a more long-term support for the organizations.
And what I'm hearing is marking those donors to make sure that you know that they came in on an emergency response. So as you model for the next emergency response, selecting out maybe someone who hasn't given in a while will respond to this type of an emergency, and COVID was a great example.
Yes, and it is tricky because this is fall. So you have fall acquisition in market and a lot of other competing factors. So it's tricky to determine who gave and who gave because of the emergency. But there's ways that you can code them as they come in. And so you can tell if they didn't give again and see where they gave and why they gave to help determine that.
Yeah. It's hard to code, but if you don't try, you're definitely not going to get that data in. Comparing December of 2025 to December 2024, would you expect to be down following crisis fundraising because you're coming so soon after, or how was your December? And I'll ask Jackie on that?
Yeah, it was incredibly strong. It was stronger for sure than 2024. I think we still had a ton of momentum and were able to tell our story. In addition to all the support we got from our donors, the telethon, all those things, our communications team was phenomenal. We said yes to everything. In addition to the virtual coffee and conversation or town hall gathering, we were on the mayor's daily press event on a regular basis. The mayor stepped up and did a food and fun drive for Dare to Care. We were definitely top of mind for folks. I think that that momentum carried through the end of year.
To build on that for you, Jackie, I mean, we certainly saw in email channel, especially, that we were up significantly year over year for our year-end fundraising efforts. Last fiscal year, it was really Giving Tuesday that led the charge. To see that at year end after the outpouring of generosity was incredible. We got a little bit softer in paid media during December because we were focused on such a specific area. To see our other digital channels still, rising, it just goes to show how all of your channels working together will help you maximize those moments of opportunity. That was a blessing.
And that idea that you wouldn't want the opportunities in this presentation. We would have preferred that there hadn't been SNAP benefit cuts, that Russia had stayed on their side of the border, all of those sorts of things. But once you have that, getting in front of donors and reminding them of the impact they have isn't a fixed pot of money that you're going after, but really expands the goodwill and the awareness that people have of your mission. I'm not seeing any additional questions. If you do have questions but are just feeling shy today, all three of our panelists would love to hear from you. You can see their email addresses up on the screen here, which leaves me to thank Jackie, Samantha, Julie for sharing their knowledge, and hope that you will never need some of the things in this presentation, but as we said, plan and build the ark before the flood to prepare for rapid response so that you're able to have an effective one come what may. So, any final thoughts from our panel?
Just say thank you so much for having me, and Julie and Sam and team for the incredible support. We could not have done what we did without you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, for that. Julie, go ahead.
I hope that you never need to employ these things, but it's always so great to be prepared so that if it does happen, we're here to support and answer any questions if needed.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. Great to be with you.
Thank you all and have a great day.